Looks like Tommy Edman might be playing in the outfield. What's wrong with Will Smith and what's wrong with Shohei Ohtani? But first, let's talk about Walker Buehler because his next start will be with the Dodgers. What are we looking forward to and what are we excited about? Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB in all lowercase for a first deposit match up to $100. This is a daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everydayer by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and being notified when our episodes are ready or when we're going live here, like we are here on Thursday night. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome. My name is Vince Samperio. That's Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, and we've also covered the team in a few different ways over the last 10 years. We've written about the team. We've talked about the team. We've been in the press box. We've been in the locker room. We've interviewed players. We've done it all. And we continue here to talk about the Dodgers every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. And it's about that time to get started on that right now. The Dodgers did not play on Thursday. It was an okay day in terms of standings. The Padres won, so they're now 2.5 back of the Dodgers. The D-backs lost, so they are 3.5 back. It could be the next time we talk, the Dodgers aren't in first place. Hopefully not, but that's just a reality of the situation of where we're at right now. But there was something that did happen on Thursday that pertains to the Dodgers next week, and that's Walker Buehler. Walker Buehler pitched for the OKC Dodgers. He pitched into the 6th inning. He gave up just 1 run on a home run down the left field line. At one point, I think he retired 13 straight batters, and I watched it. It was nothing overpowering by any sense of the word, but it was a lot more promising than his last couple starts had been for someone like Buehler, who is not necessarily rehabbing from injury, but more so kind of trying to find himself. Results matter just a little bit more than maybe some other rehab assignments, right, Jeff?
Yeah, probably. And, the point we make often is we don't really know what people are working on in these rehab starts or in spring training starts. But, the impulse is to say, well, it's just minor league hitters. And I saw a good point from somebody on Twitter saying, we talk all the time about how the Pacific Coast League is a hitters league. And so we have to take, Ryan Ward and Andre Lipsius and all these guys' offensive performance with a grain of salt. And the flip side of that is if a pitcher dominates those hitters for 5 1/3 innings, that happened in that offensive environment too. The fact is, the Walker Buehler of 2021, we would have expected to throw 6 perfect innings, 7 perfect innings, against a AAA lineup. So we don't know that, like, you can dominate a team or a AAA team like this and not really know what it means, but it's definitely better than giving up 6 runs to a AAA team and then saying, all right, next one is in the big leagues, because he's going to be pitching the big leagues. I'd rather have him have at least one good start under his belt in AAA.
Yeah, I was watching the broadcast, and obviously I didn't realize because I wouldn't really look that up, but Walker Buehler was 0-4 in AAA this year heading into this game. Like, even though some of his earlier starts weren't even 5 innings, and even some of his later starts were, but he hadn't pitched well. And again, it was a combination of a few things. Those earlier starts, you probably throw him out. He was just trying to get back. These starts, maybe he is trying to work on something specific or whatever it was. But knowing that his next start, from all things we've been told, is supposed to be with the Dodgers, I'm sure Buehler treated this maybe as a little bit more of a regular start. And if that's the case, then yeah, it's slightly encouraging. Obviously it is AAA, but he's pitched in AAA and hasn't pitched this well in the last couple of times out. So in terms of him returning to the rotation, I mean, we talked about, does he even deserve to return to the rotation just based on, how he's been this season in general. But we did agree that, if he's going to get a shot, then they got to give him a shot. And right now is when he gets that shot. What are you thinking, or what are we thinking, in terms of a timeline? They said Kershaw was going to get about 5 starts. Wasn't clarified if it was 5 from that time or 5 total. But for Buehler, like, it's less than 50 games left in the season. The Dodgers are now in a race for the division. Like, how many times can they give him if Buehler doesn't come out firing?
I mean, it depends on the extent to which he doesn't come out firing. I think if he's terrible, it's one and done. I think then they, either put him in the bullpen and see if he can do something there, or put him back on the IL, or, potentially even cutting him depending how bad he is. If it's just mediocre, if he goes 5 innings, allows 4 runs, I think he gets another chance or two. But if he's bad, I don't think, because they don't have the long-term commitment, and we talked a little bit about this last week, that if he gets to the point where there's no way they're going to make him a qualifying offer anyway, because they're afraid he'll take it, then there's no reason to keep him around, because he's a free agent after this year. And so I do think he's going to have to perform. I don't think there is that need to give him an extended runway, especially this late in the season. Like you said, he already kind of got that extended runway earlier in the season, and, and it didn't work out. And so, if he's terrible, I think it's one and done. But hopefully he can at least be adequate, because the Dodgers, really, if he can give him some length, that would be valuable right now. The Dodgers are kind of back to not getting deep in games. You got Glasnow and Flaherty, and then a bunch of guys who are 4 or 5 innings each, and it's taken its toll on the bullpen, but I think that also is a key point in what they're going to do with Buehler, because they're not going to let him come in and get knocked out in the 3rd or 4th inning of games and have it affect the bullpen in the rest of the season. We've reached the point in the season where they do have to focus a little bit more on winning than trying to figure stuff out. And while, there is still a little bit to figure out about Buehler, because it's not out of the question that he could come back and pitch really well and earn a spot on the postseason roster, or even potentially the postseason rotation. It's not impossible to picture that. It's unlikely, but their focus is going to be on putting together the best team they can, and not necessarily giving him a long time to figure it out. Did you get a feel for what his velocity was when you were watching the game?
I don't remember seeing velocity, but I want to say mid 90s to upper 90s was probably right. Probably more mid 90s. Honestly, I didn't really pay attention. I had it on and I was watching kind of when he was throwing, but and it wasn't overpowering outing by any means. It was a solid outing. He did get, a lot of outs, not via the strikeout, and that's not a bad thing. He did really limit hard contact, so that was pretty good. And, just the flip side, like, he only allowed the 1 run. It was a 1-1 game going into the 8th, and then I think they ended up losing like 6-2 or something like that. So, like, that offense did end up scoring, just not off Buehler. So it's, like I said, we're going to see him next week, and we're going to see what he's got. The stuff wasn't necessarily the issue earlier in the season. It was just a combination of a few different things, mostly command, and, maybe stuff was not the biggest part of the concern. The concern was everything else. So we'll see what Buehler can bring. I'm with you. I don't think it's one of those where, they can't keep putting guys out there that are going to not complete at least 5 innings. And 5 innings is asking for the bare minimum at this point. And, the Dodgers can get away with that if, like, Flaherty and Glasnow and those guys are going 6 innings in theirs. And then you can, maybe get away with 5 innings. But I do think, again, we don't know what they're looking for from Buehler. Like, they could be looking for him, hey, if you can give it to us all in a couple innings, and then go from there. Like, maybe they are looking at some type of reliever role. They might say, like, go all out from the start, and we'll play it by ear after that.
Yeah, that was kind of why I was wondering about the velocity. If there is the possibility that he could throw 97 or 98 in a short outing, that could be, something that's a possibility, at least to keep an eye on. But it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Yeah. All right. There's a lot of guys in the Dodgers lineup that aren't hitting very consistently, but there's one guy that's been slumping for a while now. One guy that's in maybe mini slump, Shohei Ohtani is in that mini slump. Will Smith's been slumping for a while. Let's talk about it and see what we think, especially about Smith, because there's not really any alternatives other than handing it over to Austin Barnes or a rookie. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. Summer's here, baseball's here, and it's time for frozen treats, whether it's an ice cream and a helmet at the ballpark or you're bringing out, paleta or a popsicle out at home. That's what the summer's for. And the summer's also for Liquid IV because you need to stay hydrated. And right now, Liquid IV is taking in America's pastime with their popsicle firecracker flavor, a surefire summer hit. And Liquid IV is not just tasting like a rocket firecracker popsicle. It's adding some hydration and electrolytes and essential vitamins and clinically tested nutrients from the #1 powdered hydration brand in America. Because baseball and summer go together like Liquid IV and indulgent hydration. But if you are not someone that's a firecracker popsicle type guy, but you want to try the hydration, they got a lot of different flavors for you. They got acai berry, lemon lime, pina colada, and a bunch more. Make sure to find yours and see which one is your favorite. Go to liquidiv.com to check it out. Tear, pour, live more. One stick and a 16-ounce of water hydrates better than water alone. They got 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, powered by the LIV Hydroscience, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. Always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. So there's no more thirsty summers when you indulge in hydration with Liquid IV. Get 20% off your first order of Liquid IV when you go to liquidiv.com and use code MLB at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with promo code MLB at liquidiv.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I want to thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can check out our pal Sully for your second listen of the day. He's host of the Locked On MLB podcast, and he's here to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the fall classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also part of the Locked On Podcast Network is Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. Locked On Dodgers Postcast with host Pete Fox is available after most Dodger games live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. All right, Jeff. Let's start off with Ohtani a little bit before we get into Will Smith. He's the greater conversation. Ohtani, has been good enough. A little bit of a treading water situation, I feel like. But his average is close to dipping under 300. He has just been hitting 220 in the last 15 games. He's still got the slug. He's still getting on base at a relatively decent clip, but not like we saw earlier in the year. Is this something that's concerning? Is it a matter of, just there's not much in the I don't think it's a matter of not much in the Dodger lineup behind him, but I feel like teams can say, we can pitch Ohtani a certain way because if he doesn't beat us, then the Dodgers may not beat us.
Yeah, I absolutely think that Shohei Ohtani is going to benefit from having the rest of the lineup back. I think, and this is armchair psychology or whatever. I feel like he is the guy who puts the weight on the team on his shoulders sometimes. And when the team is struggling, maybe he presses a little bit. I mean, a lot of that struggle is just the last 9 games. He's batting 135 with a 539 OPS in the last 9 games. It's a concern, but like, you know, the strikeout rate is still perfectly reasonable during that time. It's just that he's had a ton of deep flyouts or got, you know, balls that he just barely missed. And, you know, I always think back to early in the season, those first, it felt like forever, but it was like 8 games or something that everybody was all worried about Ohtani. And we talked then about how it was just not quite the right launch angle. He was hitting the ball hard, but hitting it too much on the ground. Now I think it's the opposite. He's hitting it more, getting under a little bit, just hitting fly balls instead of line drives. And I think that he's going to benefit from getting guys back, from the team playing better in general. And, you know, it's because we are looking at a case of, you know, 9 to 15 games. Every player goes through these kind of slumps. This is something where, yeah, it's kind of a bummer. This is why people don't win the Triple Crown, because it's really hard to stay hot in all those different ways all season long. And it's not surprising that he is falling off a little bit, but it also wouldn't surprise me at all if 2 weeks from now he's batting 312 again, you know, and just kind of has turned it back on, because there's nothing fundamental about what he's doing right now that you just think, oh, wow, this guy's lost, you know?
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, again, not worried about Ohtani. Getting Mookie there behind him and strengthening the team overall, I think will help, and maybe just be a little bit of a mental reset. Like, okay, I got the guys back with me, but we'll see. The bigger conversation is Will Smith, who we've kind of not put off, but there's just been a lot of other things to talk about. And Will Smith doesn't prominently stick out, but when you look at the numbers, they are pretty prominent in the fact of sticking out. You know, Smith's been bad kind of any way you slice it over the last few months. He hasn't had, you know, a good week or anything like that in a long time. In June, his OPS was 642. July got up a little bit to 724. So far in the 4 games in August, he's OPSing over 170. If you look, you know, back over the last month of games, he's hitting 125 with the 363 OPS. Like, he's not hitting well. You look at the underlying numbers, he's not really up there in anything. And, you know, his or hard hit percentage, barrel percentage is okay. Everything else is kind of mediocre to bad. Is there a serious concern about Smith right now, or is it another, you know, just kind of a lot's going on in the lineup and maybe Will Smith will benefit when other guys get back?
I think Smith will definitely benefit from batting 6th or 7th for a while, and not, you know, I think being the cleanup hitter on a team like this is a hard thing, especially when the rest of the team is struggling. And I don't know if this happens more with Smith. I remember in I think it was 2019, his rookie year, he was really good. And then he struggled the last couple of weeks of the season. And then he struggled in the postseason and, you know, the one series. And everybody looked at it as, oh, it was just a hot couple of weeks. But realistically, you look at it was just a little slump. And like you were just saying, inside, you know, Craig made the point in the comment earlier that he's batting under 200 since May, which is true. But from June 29th to July 19th, a span of 12 games, he batted 326 with a 1067 OPS. And so there's been hot stretches in there. Kind of shows you how cold the cold stretches have been. If you can have an OPS of whatever it is, 535 or whatever in the 2 months, even with that hot stretch in there. But the hitting ability is still there. I think that Smith is probably not a cleanup hitter and will benefit from, you know, when you look at when the Dodgers have a lineup of Shohei, Mookie, Freddie, Teoscar, Muncy, and then Smith batting 6th with, you know, then probably Edman, Pages, and Lux behind him. Suddenly he is probably in a spot in the lineup where he's a little bit more comfortable. He's going to get a lot of opportunities with runners on base, which is always easier to hit. There's just going to be so much going on there that I think will benefit him from not having, you know, when you have a team that's supposed to be awesome and then a bunch of guys are hurt, suddenly the couple guys who are left, you know, for a long time it was, or for a while there when Freddie was out too, it was just Ohtani and Teoscar and Smith and then everybody else. And I think those guys felt that pressure and will benefit from not feeling that pressure for a while.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's that. The one thing, it's hard because there's not data from past years on the bat speed thing, but his bat speed is in the 5th percentile. And as we saw with, and I don't know if it's been like that the whole season or if it's like that just after these last few months, like kind of have dragged it down. I'm not sure. But as we saw with Lux, like that's one of the big things that kind of helped him get out of this slump. And that was, Lux was more of a confidence thing and being able to trust his body. Will Smith, I would imagine his swing's probably always been a little bit, slower than others. He doesn't seem to be a guy that has a quick through the zone. So we'll just see. Obviously as catchers, we know that once you get later in the season, and Smith has had this before where he's kind of struggled later in the year, but this one is a little bit different because it started in like June and last year when he struggled a little bit, and then at the end of the season we found out he was dealing with something. Could that be a reason again? I don't know, but I would think with how bad he's been, if there was something wrong with him, like the Dodgers have a lot of catchers on the roster, like wouldn't they have tried something else?
Yeah, Will Smith is still the best option, especially because defensively he's been great, throwing guys out. Like he's a much better defensive option than Austin Barnes, and he's still, notwithstanding the last little while, he's still a better hitter than Austin Barnes. And regardless of what the stats say for the last couple of months, I would always put money on, okay, who's going to be the better hitter over the next month or the next 6 months or the next 2 years? Will Smith, because he's the better hitter. I see this comment from BC saying it would be less concerning if this didn't happen every year, a poor second half. I just pulled up the numbers. In his career, all of his seasons combined, his OPS by month, April to March, 895, May, 808, June, 835, July, 816, August, 863, September, 756. His Septembers are worse than most, but this isn't a second half every season thing for Smith. It is, being a catcher is a hard thing, so it makes sense that you're going to get worn down, but it's definitely recency bias. I mean, the fact that last August, until this last year was the first year he was bad in August. He was excellent in August in 2019, 2020, 2021, and then solid in 2022. So it's not an every second half thing. But yeah, Smith is a guy who I saw another comment from Craig earlier saying that Ohtani needs to swing for contact more, stop swinging from his heels. I disagree with that, but I absolutely agree with that for some guys. And I think Will Smith needs to be thinking gap to gap because, like you said, he's not a huge power hitter. He's got some power for sure. And the Gavin Lux approach that's worked so well for him is when he gets in a good hitter's count or early in the count, he will look for a pitch he can drive. But otherwise, then he's looking to go gap to gap. Kike Hernandez could definitely benefit from that. He pulls off the balls so much. If he could stay on it, drive those outside sliders to right center field, Will Smith would definitely benefit from some of that. And obviously that's easier said than done. And I have no way of knowing what Smith's mindset is at the plate. Not that he's, I assume that he and the hitting coaches, all of whom know a lot more about hitting than I do, know all of this stuff. Just looking at the end results though, when we see Smith swinging and missing at pitches that normally he will drive. And, you think about his walk-off hit a couple weeks ago, that was classic Will Smith. It was just line drive over the shortstop's head, poke a line drive over the second baseman's head. And I think that's why I think when Smith gets to a point where he doesn't feel like the offense is riding on him and he can just feel like, hey, I'm just a cog in this machine. Will Smith is very much a cog in the machine kind of guy who I think is at his best when he can just pass the baton, whether it is by working a walk or hitting a line drive somewhere and then knowing that you're driving in the guys in front of you and the guys behind you are going to drive you in.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff is, you're going to hear say a lot about that until guys come back. And that's not going to be a fix. Like it's not going to be, oh, Mookie's back and then Muncy's back, Edman's back. And now the Dodgers are scoring 6-7 runs a game because those guys still have to get back into, game shape too. But it'll be better than what they have right now. And that should be better and help the Dodgers in a few different ways. So Tommy Edman was seen playing the outfield on Thursday in some workouts. Is that where we think the Dodgers are going to have him? Make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's fun to use. One of those 5 million active members is me. I'm on Prize Picks, checking out what I can do, checking out the stat projections, and it's as simple as this. You find a player, you find a stat projection. So you can find Shohei Ohtani and a stat projection for number of runs scored. And if it's 0.5, if you think he's going to score a run, you pick more. If you think he's not going to score a run, you pick less. And that's as easy as it gets. You do that with 2 different players, all the way up to 6 different players. And boom, you're putting together your lineups. Prize Picks is here and can help you win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You could turn $10 into $1,000. So go check out the Prize Picks, download the app, and get in on the daily action. Become part of the Prize Picks community today. It's available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. So go check out Prize Picks, download the app, and if you use the code LOCKEDONMLB, you get a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. I want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one everydayer, is just someone that listens or watches every day. We got a few of them here in the live YouTube chat, and I'm sure there's a lot more of you out there. If you're not an everydayer already, you can become one by just listening or watching every day, or you can, if you're not ready for that commitment, you can add at least 1 episode a week and work your way up to that 5 episodes a week. If that's what you're so inclined to do, you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Make sure to join and you'll get text from us. It's a few bucks a month. You get updates, thoughts, rumors, any type of things that go on, any videos that we get from the stadium and all that type of stuff. And you can be part of the Locked On Dodgers subtext. So make sure to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. All right, Jeff. So the Dodgers put out some videos and pictures on Thursday night, and it was from the workouts at Dodger Stadium. Mookie Betts, Max Muncy, and Tommy Edman were all seen fielding and hitting. One, it was good to see Max Muncy swinging a bat and running the bases. One of the videos had that shown, and playing third base. So the way he's moving did look encouraging that he is going to be returned soon. He's supposed to start a rehab assignment this weekend. But the bigger thing is Tommy Edman, and we were trying to figure out exactly what the Dodgers have in mind for him. We know that Mookie is going to come back and play shortstop, but we weren't entirely sure if that meant the whole time or if just until Tommy Edman gets back and then put Mookie in the outfield and shuffle some other things around. But at least for the video that was posted, Edman was in the outfield. Is that where it probably works best for the Dodgers right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. When you look at the Andy Pages and James Outman have been the Dodgers' 2 main center fielders this year. They added Kevin Kiermaier. What do those 3 guys have in common? None of them have hit very well this year. What does, the one who's hit the best is Andy Pages, who is a bad defensive center fielder, which means they don't have a center fielder right now who can both hit well and play a good center field. Tommy Edman could be that guy. He's not going to be a superstar hitter, but if he, there's no guarantees on what he's going to be. He hasn't played in the majors this year. But the version of Tommy Edman that we've seen over the last several years, basically his whole career, is a guy who is very good defensively in center field and a solid hitter. And a guy like that is absolutely the best option there. It's why it makes sense to me. You talked about this a little bit the other day on your solo episode when they announced that Mookie Betts will be the shortstop. It's why that always made sense to me. Mookie Betts isn't as bad at shortstop as people seem to think he is. And when the alternative is right field, where Andy Pages and Jason Hayward and Teoscar Hernandez all need to be playing right field when they're playing, they're already going to have at least one of those guys out of the position. Better to not have 2 of them out of position. And so roll with the outfield of Teoscar in left, Edman in center, Pages in right, with Hayward playing right, I guess, against right-handed pitching. Maybe if Hayward earns a spot on the postseason lineup, we'll see. Ahmed Rosario can play right field, can play some infield spots, kind of be a utility guy for a lot of different options there. But yeah, Tommy Edman in center is, for me, absolutely the right puzzle piece that they're looking for right now.
Yeah, and again, at least to start, if it comes down to it, and Mookie is just that bad at shortstop, let's just say he is even more rusty than before. Like, he wasn't rusty before; he just was learning the position. But if he comes back rusty, and the Dodgers are in a dogfight for the division, like they are seeming to gonna be, then yeah, you might have to make some moves here and there. But again, I think from what we've seen, if Mookie can just do what he did in the first half or before he got hurt at short, I think the Dodgers will be better off leaving him there, assuming Lux keeps hitting, and then Edman can play center, and then you kind of figure it out. The other part that, maybe not directly part of this, but I was watching the game, the OKC game, when Buehler were pitching. Dalton Rushing didn't look that out of place out there in left field. And, I don't know if I'm assuming the Dodgers obviously have an idea of him maybe getting some time in the majors this year, because they are going to it was reported that he's going to exclusively play left field over there in OKC. Another intriguing thing that could happen if the Dodgers continue to not get offensive production and or defensive production from some of these guys.
Yeah, I love the fact that they're giving it a try at least. And some of that is just what we talked about. They already have Diego Cartaya and Hunter Fiducia and Chris Oakey at AAA. And so you don't necessarily need a fourth catcher. But yeah, I mean, it's the Kyle Schwarber approach to getting a prospect to the big leagues. Kyle Schwarber was drafted as a catcher, and he ended up being a bad defensive outfielder, and now he's a DH. And, with a stint as a terrible first baseman in there for a while, Rushing, I think, is a better athlete than Schwarber, and so has a chance to be a better outfielder than Schwarber. And if he could play a passable left field and hit the ball well, then suddenly he could take Andy Pajez's spot, move Teoscar to right field where he's good defensively, and suddenly you have, if Teoscar's in right, Edman's in center, and Rushing in left. If Rushing's playing decent defense, that's a solid defensive outfield and a really good offensive outfield. And definitely, there's a lot of ifs there. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I love that the Dodgers are at least trying that with Rushing.
Yeah. Any extra type of boot like that, realistically what they're getting right now is not consistent and or not good most of the time. So anything that can change that, or at least, not that these guys aren't trying to be their best anyways, but if you're Jason Hayward or someone like that, and you see, one of the Dodgers' top hitting prospects is going to start playing outfield, it maybe lights a little bit of a fire. They shouldn't need that, and I'm not saying it would, but it's possible. We can't speak in certainties, but we can have some hypotheticals for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Jeff. The Dodgers didn't play. They got the Pirates this weekend, of course. They get to face Paul Skeens on Saturday, which will be fun for Dodger fans if you haven't seen them pitch live already. Mitch Keller was supposed to pitch Friday, but then I saw that they were calling up Domingo Germán to maybe start Friday, so not sure if something happened there. But either way, the Dodgers, again, they could be out of first place the next time we talk, with the very big possibility if the weekend doesn't go very well.
Yeah, I was hoping with getting swept by the Padres and now kind of their playoff chances being hurt that maybe they were just going to rest everybody, give everybody a couple extra days, and that's why I called up Germán. Hey, bump everybody back by 2 days. Let Paul Skeens pitch the first game of whatever your next series is.
I play the Padres next.
It's the Padres again. Yeah. Save Skeens for the Padres, and it's not fair that the Padres get to miss Skeens twice. So probably for the best if they just push him back and let him start against the Padres.
Yeah. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank y'all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us where we get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to become an everydayer by listening or watching every day. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell any Dodger fan in your life. There's podcasts there for them for about 30 minutes every Monday through Friday. You can check out Locked On MLB podcast with our buddy Sully. Prepare for the Fall Classic because he's got MLB covered every single day. So go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. You can find the link to that in our description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Locked On Sports Los Angeles and Locked On Sports Today are two 24/7 streaming channels. Also from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world 24/7 on YouTube. The Locked On Dodgers postcast with host Pete Fox is available there after most Dodger games on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel and in our audio feed. You can go beyond the podcast, come a Locked On Dodgers Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get text directly from us with any news and things of that nature, so you can check that out. You can find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, which are more active now. If you guys are following, you have noticed we're getting 2 or 3 posts an episode now, so make sure to go check that out and interact with that. You can find Jeff on Twitter at SnyDog. I'm at Vincents91. You can DM us with any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or if you're at home, tell your smart advice by podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you after the weekend.